When Marcus Hill stepped off the bus in his immaculate uniform, he never imagined those polished brass buttons would soon be the very instruments of his disgrace. Within moments, he found himself yanked from his stride, thrown against a cold squad car, and cuffed like a criminal, with neighbors watching in stunned silence. The badge he'd worn with pride was twisted into a cruel brand, marking him not as protector, but as suspect. Humiliated before the world he vowed to serve, Marcus tasted the bitter shame of injustice on his tongue, and in that moment, everything he believed about honor shattered. What could drive two brothers in arms to strip him of dignity and bind him in steel? Dive into his story and discover how one call for help can become a symphony of betrayal. Before diving into this gripping tale, let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch more inspiring stories like this one. The street lay hushed beneath the pale wash of early dawn, the sky a bruise of lavender and slate. A fine mist hovered just above the pavement, curling around the curb like slow breath. In the half-light, storefront windows glimmered with the sheen of condensation, their neon signs dormant, waiting for day to break. A lone newspaper dispenser rattled softly in the gentle breeze, and somewhere beyond the alley, a freight train groaned as it began its northbound crawl. The world felt suspended, caught between last night's shadows and the promise of a new day. Marcus Hill stood at the corner, adjusting the epaulettes on his crisp service uniform. The deep navy fabric felt heavier than it should, laden with expectation, legacy, and responsibilities he carried as solidly as the brass badge pinned to his chest. He inhaled the damp morning air and let it out slowly, tasting the tang of melting frost and the faint undernote of gasoline from idling cars parked along Elm Street. Today would be nothing like the others. He knew it. Just 15 minutes ago, he had slipped from his small apartment 2 blocks away, careful not to wake Sarah, his wife. Each step he took toward the bus stop felt measured, deliberate, as if he were pacing himself for whatever lay ahead. His fingers brushed the smooth surface of the cell phone in his jacket pocket, an ever-present lifeline to the world and to her. Sarah was expecting their first child in 2 weeks, and though his leave wasn't due until the end of the month, he'd insisted on coming home early. Duty to his country didn't always align with duty to his family, and this morning his heart tilted irrevocably toward those he loved most. A street lamp flickered overhead, sputtering against the gray sky. Marcus stifled a shiver, whether from the cold or from the weight of anticipation, he couldn't tell. He gazed down the empty block, eyes flicking over shuttered garage doors and the silent hulks of delivery trucks. He felt the city's heartbeat in that stillness, a steady pulse beneath lifeless facades, reminding him that beneath surface calm there was always motion, always stories unfolding. His breath clouded in the cool air as he continued toward the bus stop, the soles of his polished boots echoing against the concrete. The hum of a distant siren teased at the edges of his consciousness, a sound he knew better than most. From the moment he'd joined the force, the wail of an engine had marked both hope and catastrophe, rescues and heartbreaks, paroles and arrests. He carried those echoes in his bones now, each one a memory of a life he'd touched or taken in the line of duty. As he approached the bus shelter, Marcus felt a presence shift behind him. He turned slightly, expecting perhaps a fellow commuter or a morning jogger. Instead, 2 patrol cars idled at the corner, their engines thrumming low. The dark blue sedans looked out of place in the stillness, their lights dormant, but their grills glinting like predatory eyes. He recognized the vehicles, Mark County cruisers, newer models borrowed from a precinct across the bridge. A knot tightened in his chest as he watched 2 officers step out, their boots thudding on asphalt. Both wore identical uniforms, but their names, embroidered above their right pockets, were unfamiliar. Turner on the taller man's chest, Blackwell on the other. Their badges caught the street lamp's sputtering glow. Marcus paused, thumb grazing his own badge, wondering if they'd seen him already. He recalled the countless times he himself had pulled others from harm's way, domestic disputes, traffic accidents, lost children in crowded malls. He had never doubted his place in that uniform. Today, that certainty faltered. Nothing about his stance was aggressive. His hands rested openly at his sides, yet he could feel their eyes steady and calculating, tracing the sharp line of his jaw and the dark warmth of his skin. The taller officer, Turner, cleared his throat. His voice carried a measured tone as he approached the bus stop, but Marcus sensed a silent question hanging in the chill air. "Are you one of us?" In that instant, Marcus considered greeting them with the courtesy he extended to every civilian, morning officers, but something in Turner's narrowed eyes made him hesitate. He realized this was a moment unlike any other, a crossroads where respect and suspicion intersected, where uniform met uniform but experience diverged. Sarah's face flashed in his mind, her gentle smile, the way she brushed a strand of hair from her forehead whenever he shared tales of the day's calls. He let out a slow breath, steadying himself against sudden turmoil. Before he could speak, Blackwell reached for the radio clipped to his shoulder. Marcus watched the man's jaw work beneath his stiff collar and heard the faint click of the microphone against metal. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Only the distant train's lament dared pierce the silence. Then Turner stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. "ID, please," he said, voice low but firm. Marcus felt time slow, his pulse rising in his throat. He unzipped his jacket and drew out his wallet, revealing the ID card that bore his name, rank, and photo. The card felt heavier than his badge had moments before, as if this small piece of plastic contained more danger than honor. He handed it over, watching Turner scrutinize every detail, his lips pursed. Blackwell hovered at his side, arms crossed, the barrel of his flashlight tucked beneath a forearm. Marcus noticed the deliberate spacing between them, a silent barrier meant to intimidate. In that charged moment, Marcus's mind flickered back to childhood days when he and his brother played cops and robbers in the backyard. He was always the cop, hand-cradling a toy pistol against his uniform, chasing imaginary criminals behind the fence. Never had he dreamed that decades later, that uniform would mark him as a target. Turner's eyes flicked up from the ID to Marcus's face, absorbing the lines of fatigue etched around his eyes, the set of his shoulders, the slight tremor in his hand. He didn't speak for a long second. The air grew colder, the mist thicker, as if reality itself waited to see what he would do next. Finally, Turner folded the ID and slipped it into his jacket pocket. He studied Marcus once more, the dark laces of his polished boots, the slight sheen of sweat at his temples. "Where are you headed?" he asked. Marcus straightened. "Home," he said, voice steady. "I'm on leave. My wife's expecting." He forced a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I live around the corner." Turner gave a curt nod, then turned to Blackwell. Marcus could see the wheels turning behind Turner's eyes, questions, doubt, suspicion. Blackwell glanced at Marcus's uniform, at the gleaming badge. His expression was inscrutable, the slightest curl of his lip betraying nothing. "We'll be watching," Turner said, tone clipped, then vaulted back into his cruiser. Blackwell followed without a word. Both cars vanished down Elm Street, their taillights winking away like dying embers. Marcus stood alone again, the hum of the idling bus now approaching, its headlights piercing the mist. He felt adrenaline drain from his limbs, replaced by a hollow ache. He slid his wallet back into his jacket and slipped one hand into his pocket, brushing against his phone. His thumb hovered over the screen, conscious of the promise his thumbprint could unlock. He thought of Sarah waiting at home, trusting him to walk through that door. He thought of the life he had built brick by careful brick and how fragile it all felt now. He braced himself as the bus screeched to a halt, doors folding open like steel petals. As he climbed aboard, he caught sight of his reflection in the window, sharp shoulders, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, uniform crisp but stained by a moment he couldn't yet name. The city's skyline loomed in the distance, office towers and apartment blocks etched against the dawn. In that reflection, Marcus saw more than himself. He saw the story unfolding, the collision of duty and prejudice, of honor and fear. He saw the beginning of a journey that would test every conviction he held dear. The bus pulled away, carrying him toward home, toward Sarah's embrace, and toward a moment that would define him. and somewhere behind, the silent promise of two watchful officers trailed in his wake, their perceptions unshakable, until the truth of who Marcus Hill really was came calling. The road stretched ahead, shrouded in mist and possibility. The first rays of sunlight fractured the haze, painting the world in hues of rose and gold. Yet, even as the promise of morning seeped into the air, a tremor of dread clung to Marcus's heart. He could not shake the sense that this day, this simple morning walk, had already shifted the course of everything he believed he knew. Marcus stepped off the bus and walked the last 2 blocks toward his apartment, the morning sun climbing higher now, its warmth chasing away the chill. As he turned onto Willow Lane, a sudden commotion made him pause. Red and blue lights spun against the brick of his building. His heart thudded hard. 2 patrol cars were parked across the drive, engines idling. The same cruisers from this morning, but now joined by another marked unit. He reached into his pocket for his phone, but before he could pull it out, a firm hand gripped his shoulder. "Hold it right there." The voice came from behind him, crisp and unyielding. He froze, recognizing the tone even before he saw the face. Officer Turner, badge gleaming, stood a step away, Blackwell at his side, both with guns drawn and steady. Marcus raised his hands slowly, his uniform jacket still on from the early shift. "What's going on?" he asked, voice low but steady. Sarah's laughter from last night rang in his ears, mingling with the hum of the idling engines. They couldn't be here for him, not really. Turner's eyes flicked to Blackwell, then back to Marcus. "You're under arrest for possession of stolen property," he said, voice even. The words struck Marcus like a blow to the chest. Stolen property? He glanced at Turner's outstretched hand, saw the small evidence bag dangling from his fingers, a black wallet and a set of keys. His own wallet and keys. He swallowed, trying to keep his voice calm. "That's my wallet. Those are my keys. You took them this morning." Blackwell's scowl deepened. "You tried to steal that cruiser, didn't you? We got you on camera." Marcus's mind spun. "Camera? What video? I was at the bus stop. I went home to—" Turner cut him off, voice tight. "We found you on security footage walking into the impound lot behind the old mill. You tried to take one of our cars." "No," Marcus said, but the word caught in his throat. He felt the weight of the accusation spread like ice through his veins. He forced a breath. "You're wrong. I've never been near that lot." Blackwell slapped the handcuffs into Marcus's palm. The cold metal clamped around his wrists before he could protest. The click felt like the end of everything he had built. He looked at Turner's face, searching for a flicker of doubt or recognition of the mistake, but found only steely resolve. They guided him to the cruiser, prodding him forward with firm hands. Marcus glanced back at the building, Sarah's smile greeting him through the window where he'd left her. He thought of her swollen belly, their baby soon to arrive. "Please," he begged silently, "this can't be happening now." Inside the car, the front seat officer slung Marcus's uniform jacket over the seat and sat across from him with his back to the window. Handcuffed, he looked small in that rigid leather seat. Turner climbed into the driver's side, Blackwell beside him. The cruiser lurched forward before Marcus could brace himself. He felt the tires bite into the pavement as they sped away from his home toward the station. Each city block they passed was a reminder of normal life continuing without him. Joggers on River Walk, shopkeepers rolling down shutters, kids chasing a stray soccer ball on the corner. He wanted to scream out that he was innocent, that they were making a grave mistake. But his voice was swallowed by the car's rumble. As they neared the precinct, Marcus took a steadying breath. He reminded himself of procedure, remain calm, ask for a lawyer, wait for the evidence. He reached into his jacket pocket, did they know about this? And found his phone. Even cuffed, he could press and swipe. He tapped Sarah's name, his thumb trembling. No answer. He tried Captain Reynolds next, his voice slurring out of nervousness when he then pressed call volume. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's voice crackled in his ear. This is Officer Marcus Hill, he said quickly. I need to report that 2 officers, Turner and Blackwell, are arresting me on false charges. I need the chief. His words tumbled out. each one a lifeline thrown into a sea of panic. He heard muffled voices in the cruiser. Turner's tone was clipped. "Who the hell is he calling?" Blackwell growled something Marcus couldn't make out. He risked a glance at the rearview mirror. Turner's reflection, jaw set, eyes narrowed. Marcus leaned forward, lowering his voice so it wouldn't be overheard. "Get Chief Daniels," he pleaded into the phone. "You've got the wrong man." Click. The line went dead. He stared at the blank screen, guilt and fear knotting in his chest. How had they taken his call? Had Turner smashed the phone? Or had the cruiser's radio antenna blocked it? He didn't know. By the time they reached the station, Marcus's uniform was wrinkled, his nameplate smeared with sweat. They herded him through the door and into the booking area like an animal. A deputy took his personal items, the wallet, the keys, slipping them into a locker and tossing the camera footage onto a monitor. "Your case is on hold until we verify the video," the deputy said, indifferent. ID took care of itself. Marcus watched the playback loop. A blurry silhouette in the impound lot, a figure resembling him bending into the driver's window of the cruiser. The time stamp flickered. 2 hours ago, minutes before his shift ended. Except he had never been there. The image was grainy, distorted, and the face was obscured. He struggled to his feet. "That's not me," he insisted. "Check the uniform. This was taken before my shift. The cuffs on that cruiser are different from ours. It's a setup." The deputy raised an eyebrow. "You think someone framed you?" "I know it." Marcus's voice cracked. Someone gave them that footage. Someone wanted this moment. Turner and Blackwell exchanged a glance, their arms folded. Turner stepped forward, voice colder than before. "Save it for the judge." They locked him in a holding cell, metal bars, cinder block walls, and a narrow bench bolted to the floor. The door clanged shut. Marcus pressed his forehead against the cool steel. He could hear the station's bustle beyond the walls. Phones ringing, officers shouting reports, the distant drone of radio chatter. Alone, with his racing thoughts, he was forced to replay the morning from the start. The bus stop, the uniforms, the ID check. Had their suspicion that morning been more than prejudice? Had they planned this? Were Turner and Blackwell part of something bigger, an internal vendetta or a hateful conspiracy? His fingers touched the spot where his wedding ring would be if he hadn't taken it off for the cuffs. He pictured Sarah's face, her bright eyes, the way she whispered promises of love in the dark. Could she stand by him if he were guilty of nothing more than wearing the wrong skin? Locked in that cell, he reached for his phone again, but it was gone. They had taken it. Suddenly, the world felt impossibly far away. He banged on the door. "Captain Reynolds." "Chief Daniels." He screamed until his throat burned. Footsteps approached. The door rattled as the deputy unlocked it. "Quiet down," the guard snapped. "You'll get your chance to talk." Marcus sank to the bench, chest heaving. The echo of his own voice haunted the small space. He felt betrayal in every breath, by the two men who had sworn to protect, by a system that could turn on its own. Minutes stretched into hours. The station clock ticked inexorably toward noon, then 1, then 2. Marcus sat silent, drained. Outside the cell, muted voices discussed his case. "That footage is damning. He claims he was home. We'll have to see what the chief says." Finally, the deputy returned with a folded piece of paper, a phone number scrawled in black ink. "You can make one call," he said. Marcus unfolded the paper, saw the number for Sarah's cell. His thumb hovered over the keypad. He dialed. It rang once, twice, then her voice soft and worried. "Marcus? What's wrong?" He swallowed hard. "Sarah, they arrested me." His voice trembled. "They say I tried to steal a cruiser. I'm in the station." There was a pause, long and heavy. "What? No, oh God, Marcus." Her voice cracked. "I'm coming." He pressed his free hand to the bars. "Listen to me. You have to call Captain Reynolds. Tell him to tell Chief Daniels I'm innocent. They've got the wrong guy." "I will," she promised. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. The guard stepped up, his shadow swallowing the doorway. "Time's up." He snatched the phone away before Marcus could say more. As he watched his last link to the outside world vanish, Marcus felt a fierce determination ignite inside him. They had taken his freedom, but not his truth. Someone had framed him, and he would unearth the betrayal, no matter how deep it ran. When the guard slammed the cell door shut, the clamor of the station faded. Marcus Hill sat alone in the cage, heart pounding, mind racing. The inciting spark had ignited, his world upended, his honor at stake, and a mystery of motives hidden behind the badges of two men he once considered peers. He closed his eyes and envisioned Sarah's face, resolute and loving. He envisioned the chief's stern gaze when he heard the truth, and he vowed that before the sun rose again, he would turn this false accusation on its head and reveal the real darkness lurking in plain sight. The metal door clanged shut behind him, and Marcus Hill sat on the narrow bench, the cell's chill seeping through his uniform. He folded his arms, letting the harsh white light wash out the blur of his thoughts, and closed his eyes. Each breath came slow and measured, a small act of defiance. He would not let panic steal him. He had to remain present, alert. Down the corridor, voices rose and fell. He heard Captain Daniels's deep timbre, firm, serious. The chief had arrived, no doubt summoned by Sarah's call. Marcus imagined the lines creasing the captain's face as he watched the grainy footage and listened to Turner's version. He knew Daniels had faith in him, enough to keep him from being cuffed like a common criminal last time they'd met. But was that faith strong enough to withstand the weight of proof on a flickering screen? He thought of Sarah now, brave, determined Sarah. She'd storm through those station doors and demand answers. He pictured her chestnut hair tied back, her eyes dark with worry. She wouldn't cower, she would fight. That thought warmed him, gave his pulse a steady rhythm. Footsteps approached, lighter this time. Through the bars, Marcus saw a new face, Detective Claire Mitchell. She wore a tailored gray suit, her auburn hair pulled into a neat bun. Her badge was clipped to her waist, and in her hand she held a file. She paused outside his cell and looked at him directly. "Sergeant Hill," she said quietly, though her voice carried authority. "Mind if I sit?" He gestured to the bench beside him. She slid in, close enough that he could hear the soft rustle of her coat. "I've reviewed the footage," she began, voice low. "It doesn't match you." He blinked, surprised. You think it's not me?" Claire closed the file and laid it on her lap. "That silhouette is too broad in the shoulders. And look here," she tapped a photograph. "The gloves on his hands are white cotton. Yours are black leather." Turner and Blackwell missed that detail. Marcus exhaled, tension easing from his shoulders. "So, you believe me?" She gave a thin smile. "I believe you deserve the presumption of innocence. But there's more." She leaned forward, voice dropping further. "I've been asked to keep this quiet, to let Daniels handle it. But something about this smells off. And I think I know why." He frowned. "Why would Turner frame me?" Claire glanced around, as if expecting someone to be listening. "He's angry at you. Remember that robbery call last month? You and your partner cleared that scene, found the stolen goods, and you recommended leniency for the teen who'd been coerced. Turner thought you went soft. He's been harboring a grudge?" Marcus's stomach twisted. "A grudge enough to set me up?" She nodded. "Blackwell follows Turner everywhere. Turner convinced him that you favored the other side more than your own. They saw your ID this morning and saw an opportunity." Marcus closed his eyes. "So, they planted this video." Claire tapped the file again. "Yes, it's been doctored. But someone with access had to insert that timestamp and relabel the footage, and it's complicated." She hesitated as the door rattled. "I'll do what I can. But as of now, you're still booked." He felt both relief and frustration. "What about bail?" "I'm pushing for you to be released on your own recognizance. Daniels respects me. I think he'll listen." She stood. "I'll let you know." Marcus watched her go. His cell felt emptier, quieter, but hope like dawn light was stirring behind his ribs. Across town, Sarah paced the captain's office. The room smelled of old coffee and paperwork. Captain Daniels stood at the window, hands clasped behind his back, jaw tight. He didn't look at her when she entered. "Captain," Sarah said, voice trembling only slightly. He turned, relief softening his features. "Sarah, thank you for coming." He motioned to a wooden chair beside his desk. She slid in. She dug in her purse and pulled out her phone. "Marcus called me. Said Turner and Blackwell arrested him for stealing a cruiser." Her voice wavered. "They showed me a grainy video. It's him, but it can't be him." Daniels sighed, leaning forward. "I've known Marcus for years. He's one of our best. He wouldn't do this." She stared at him. "Then do something." He tapped his pen on the desk. "I want you to stay here. Let me speak with Chief Reynolds, review the evidence." And his voice softened. "Let me know every detail you remember from this morning." Sarah closed her eyes, drawing a steadying breath. He left home for the bus at 6. He talked about Sarah's due date. He said he wanted to get home. Then he fed the stray cat in the alley. She paused, as if recalling a dream. "I'm sure he went straight home after that." Daniels nodded, scribbling notes. "Good. I'll get the video forensics team on it. I'll talk to Turner and Blackwell. Marcus will be out soon." Her shoulders loosened. "Thank you." Meanwhile, in room 213 of the precinct, Turner sat across from Blackwell, both frowning over a cup of stale coffee. Papers were strewn about. Time cards, service logs, the so-called evidence. Turner ran a hand through his hair. "He claims he was home." Blackwell lifted the mug. "You saw him take that call." He said the chief. Turner's eyes darkened. "He's trying to spin it." He pushed a paper across the table. "Look at this. For 3 years, Hill has gotten commendations, every one of them questionable. His heroics always result in someone getting lenient treatment." Blackwell frowned. "You still think he's a traitor?" Turner slammed his fist. "Not a traitor. A cop who's weak on criminals. He embarrasses the badge every time he turns some paint-sniffing kid loose." Blackwell sat back, conflicted. "But framing him, that's a risky move." "I don't care." Turner's voice was low, fierce. "He needs to go down." Blackwell stared at his partner for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. "All right." Turner exhaled. "Let's get out of here," before Daniels changes his mind. Late afternoon, in the booking area, Claire Mitchell's voice echoed in the corridor as she whirled toward Daniels. "Captain, the forensics report should be ready tomorrow morning. They found anomalies in the metadata." Daniels turned from his desk. "Anomalies?" Claire tapped her tablet. "Someone tampered with the timestamp. The original file had no uniform visible at all." She paused. "Also, there's a second recording deleted under false pretenses that shows nobody near the cruiser at the alleged time." Daniels' eyes narrowed. "That supports Hill's story." She nodded. "Yes, but it also suggests someone planted the framed footage in the station's archive. That's an internal job." He took a breath and looked at the closed cell door. "Then we'll uncover who did it." Back in his cell, Marcus felt the hard slat of the bench under his thigh. The muffled bustle outside was a reminder that life continued, clients' calls, victims, and criminals all waiting for him. He rubbed his wrists where the handcuffs had bitten into his skin. Claire slipped in, coffee in hand. She set it on the bench between them. "For you." He wrapped his hands around the warm cup. "Thank you." She perched on the edge of the bunk. "Daniels is closing in on the truth. You'll be released by morning." He studied her face, scar just above her lip, a souvenir from a case years ago. "Why help me?" Claire shrugged, eyes steady. "Because I hate seeing the system used as a weapon. And because you once saved my sister when I was on the force." She smiled wryly. "It evened the score?" He nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude. "I owe you." She stood. "Just clear your name, Sergeant. Then we'll call it square." As she left, Marcus sipped the coffee, its dark warmth spreading through him. He closed his eyes and pictured his wife, the baby, the life they'd planned. He thought of Turner's anger, Blackwell's doubt, and the betrayal that cut deeper than any steel cuff. He would stand before a judge, but he would not be defined by these walls. He would reveal the weakness in Turner's scheme, expose the motives behind the frame, and restore his honor. He inhaled, mind sharpening. Act 2 was unfolding. Lines were drawn, alliances formed, secrets waiting in the wings. And when the dawn broke again, Marcus Hill would be ready. Claire Mitchell met Marcus's gaze as the cell door swung open. Relief flooded his features. He sank into the corridor's harsh light, unshackled at last. "You're free to go," she said. His legs trembled as he stepped forward, rubbing his wrists. He expected gratitude, perhaps a word of encouragement. Instead, she watched him with steady, unreadable eyes. He followed her to a side office where Captain Daniels stood by a bank of monitors. Daniels greeted him with a curt nod. "The forensics cleared you," he said. "I'm ordering your release immediately." Marcus exhaled, the tension of hours unspooling from his shoulders. He glanced at Claire, who offered him a thin smile. "Come with me," she said softly, guiding him past expectant officers in the booking area. Outside, sunlight glinted off the building's facade, and Marcus blinked into the afternoon brightness. He inhaled deeply, a sense of triumph rising within him. He would return home to Sarah, to the life that had been so brutally interrupted. "Thank you," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to—" Claire held up a hand. "Don't thank me yet." Her words fell like a door, locking behind him. "There's something else you need to see." Marcus paused, confusion flickering in his chest. "What do you mean?" She led him to a small conference room, its walls lined with evidence lockers. She closed the door, motioning for him to sit at the table. "I found something else in the metadata," she said. She produced a tablet and tapped the screen. A video played, this one untouched by any timestamp or uniform. Marcus recognized the empty lot, the impound lot's rusty fence, and then nothing, no figure, no crime. He frowned. So the first footage was fake. Claire nodded. "Yes, but there's more. Look at the file's creation date." She swiped to a properties page. May 15th, 3 days before the robbery you worked on. Marcus's hand twitched. "That's impossible." Claire's lips curved. "Unless someone loaded that doctored clip into the station archives long before you ever saw it." She met his eyes, and in them he saw no compassion, only calculation. They wanted to ensure the footage would be on record, ready to accuse you when the time was right. Marcus stood, shock gripping his throat. "Who?" His voice was rough. "Who would do this?" Claire tapped another icon, displaying a personnel log. "Note, who accessed the archives on May 15th. She highlighted a name, Detective Claire Mitchell. His breath caught. "You did this." Her expression remained impassive. "I gave Turner and Blackwell the clip. They pressed the button on the charge." She leaned forward, voice low. "I've been waiting for someone with your reputation to fall. You think you're special, above rules. I don't like anything special." Betrayal surged through him. "Why?" he whispered. "Why betray me?" Claire stood, smoothing her jacket. "Because you let that kid off with a warning. Because you made me believe we were partners in justice. But I grew tired of your soft heart." Turner felt the same. She crossed her arms. "We needed a scapegoat." Marcus's fists clenched. The room spun around him, white walls closing in. "You set this all up," he said. Words tasted like bile. "You destroyed my life on your whim." Claire's gaze hardened. "I gave you back your freedom for now, but don't think you owe me anything." She turned away, voice chilling. "Just stay out of my way." He stumbled back, anger and grief colliding. "I trusted you." Claire paused by the door. Without looking back, she added, "Trust is earned, not given." Then she left, the click of the latch echoing down the corridor. Alone, Marcus pressed his palms against the cold table. The revelation scorched him from the inside out. Claire Mitchell, his ally, his deliverer, had been the architect of his downfall. Everything he thought he knew shifted in that moment. The safe ground of his world had vanished. He felt the weight of betrayal settle on his shoulders. The precinct's corridors seemed darker now, lined with shadows cast by deceit. He realized that to clear his name, he would not only have to prove the footage was fraudulent, but also unmask the true mastermind. And that meant going up against someone he had once called a friend. As he left the station, the late afternoon sun felt alien on his skin. Each step toward home rattled his certainty. He had escaped the cell, but the real cage of lies, manipulation, and hidden agendas still held him tight. And somewhere within that maze, Claire Mitchell watched, waiting for her next move. The late afternoon light spilled through the living room window in uneven bars, painting the walls gold and shadow. Sarah sat on the couch, her hands cradling her swelling belly, eyes red from crying. Marcus paused on the threshold, uniform shirt discarded in a heap on a chair, tie untucked. He closed the door, quietly, then crossed the room and sank beside her. "I'm home," he whispered, voice rough. Sarah reached for his hand, her fingers trembling. Marcus felt a stab of guilt. He should have been here days ago, preparing the nursery, holding her when every creak in the dark made her jump. Instead, he'd been trapped in steel bars, framed by someone he had trusted. Sarah's eyes bore into him. "Claire did this," she said, voice wavering between anger and disbelief. "The detective you saved, she set you up." "I know," he said, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. He felt her press into him, small and fragile. Everything he had fought for, their love, their coming child, felt suddenly exposed to the cold wind of Claire's betrayal. "I'm sorry, Sarah." She shook her head. "I'm mad at you, too. You spent years helping everyone else, and now you left me alone." Her words cut into him, sharper than any accusation from Turner or Blackwell. He held her tighter, closing his eyes against the memory of her tears. That night he barely slept. He lay beside Sarah, listening to her even breaths. Dawn seeped in, and he rose, careful not to wake her. He dressed in plain clothes, jeans, and a worn leather jacket, and slipped out into the empty street. He needed answers. He drove to a small internet cafe 2 blocks from the precinct, the one no one ever noticed. Inside, he rented a computer under the name Michael Harper, a moniker he used when he needed untraceable research. He pulled up the station's public server portal, then logged in with credentials he'd lifted from Claire's abandoned laptop weeks ago when they'd worked side by side on a domestic violence case. It felt wrong, violating her privacy, but Claire had already violated his trust. Lines of code scrolled on the screen as he navigated the archives. He found that the directory marked evidence_incoming and spotted the file Claire had planted. Next to it was another file with a different timestamp, one he hadn't yet seen. He downloaded both to a flash drive, then shut the laptop and slipped out before sunrise. Back home, he met Sarah in the kitchen. She held 2 mugs of coffee, the aroma filling the small apartment. "I'm going back in," he said, voice low but determined. "There's something in the archives that Claire didn't expect me to find." Sarah's eyes widened. "Marcus, if you go back there—" "I have to," he insisted. "Their entire plan depends on controlling the narrative. That video, the metadata, even the eyewitness statements. But I have something they don't, proof that someone scrubbed the original files." He reached into his pocket and showed her the flash drive. "This will clear everything. But I need to get it to Daniels before Claire can bury it again." Sarah nodded, strength bolstering her fear. "Be careful." He kissed her forehead. "Always." By mid-morning, Marcus pulled up to the precinct's visitor parking lot in an unmarked rental. He slipped inside and took the elevator to the 3rd floor, where Captain Daniels' office lay. He knocked once, then entered before the reply. Daniels sat behind his desk, reading a report. He looked up when Marcus entered, surprise flickering in his eyes. "You're here early." Marcus dropped into the chair opposite. "I need to see the video logs again. I found something on Claire's own floor." Daniels leaned forward. "She told me she destroyed all copies. Why do you think there's more?" Marcus slid the flash drive across the desk. "Because she panicked. She knew you'd order a full purge once you suspected her. But she forgot that the original server had redundant backups. I accessed them last night." Daniels picked up the drive and studied it. "This can't be here," he muttered. He tapped the side of his phone and called for Lieutenant Cruz. A moment later, Patel, a civilian analyst, confirmed Marcus's claim. The 2 files had been swapped, original recordings deleted, and doctored footage inserted weeks before. Patel's voice was quiet but firm. "This is conclusive. Someone within the department orchestrated it. Daniels' jaw clenched. "Get me a list of everyone who accessed the archives." He turned to Marcus. "You did good work." His tone softened. "I owe you an apology for doubting you." Marcus nodded, exhaustion surfacing. "Just make sure Claire can't cover her tracks. She's dangerous." Daniels' eyes hardened. "She'll face a hearing. I promise you that." That afternoon, Claire Mitchell's phone buzzed in her purse. She glanced at the screen. From Captain Daniels, "We need to talk." Her stomach sank. She'd sensed Marcus poking around, but hadn't expected him to find the backups. She had to act fast. She stormed into Daniels' office without waiting for an invitation. "Captain," she said, voice brittle, "what's this about?" Daniels rose. "You want to explain why your credentials were used to delete and reinsert evidence files on May 15th? Claire clenched her hands. "Painful oversight," she said, voice controlled. "I intended to correct a misclassification, wrong location tag. It was sloppy, but it wasn't criminal." She adopted her best professional smile. "I was trying to protect the case's integrity." Daniels' eyes narrowed. "So you reclassified raw surveillance as internal review, then swapped it with a fabricated clip?" He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "That's tampering with evidence, detective. It's a felony." Claire's facade trembled. She swallowed. I'm sorry, but you know how these things go. You fix a file, you close a gap. I thought I could trust you to understand." Daniels reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a pair of handcuffs. "You should have thought better." He clicked them and held them out. "You're under arrest." Claire's eyes filled with shock and betrayal. Marcus, who had been standing in the corner, felt a surge of vindication. The woman who had nearly destroyed him now faced the same fate. That evening, Marcus returned home with Sarah. The front door swung open to reveal a letter taped to the threshold, a formal apology from Chief Reynolds, promising full exoneration and reinstatement of his records. Inside, a court date was set 10 days hence for a hearing on Claire's misconduct. Sarah hugged him, and he felt the tension of the past week melt away, replaced by a cautious hope. He kissed her forehead. "We did it," he murmured. She smiled through tears. "No, we did it together." Night fell gently outside. The world hushed in anticipation of the child to come. Marcus slipped an arm around Sarah and looked at the letter on the table. He knew the battle wasn't entirely over. Claire could appeal, Turner and Blackwell might still mount challenges, but the worst was behind him. He took a steadying breath. The trust shattered in Act Two's twist had been reforged stronger by truth and loyalty. And now, as the stakes rose toward the final act, he was ready to stand as both protector and partner for his family, for justice, and for the world he believed a badge should serve. Marcus stood behind the long wooden table in the precinct's meeting room, his hands gripping its edge. The room's fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the faces gathered. Chief Reynolds seated at the head, Captain Daniels beside him, Turner and Blackwell in uniform, and Detective Claire Mitchell in plainclothes, her expression hard as flint. Sarah sat against the back wall, her hand resting on her belly, eyes wide with worry and fierce determination. A silence settled, so thick he could almost feel its weight pressing against his chest. Chief Reynolds tapped a stack of papers, then spoke in a measured tone. "We're here to determine the facts surrounding the accusations against Sergeant Marcus Hill and the subsequent tampering of departmental evidence." He raised his eyes to Marcus. "Do you have anything to add before we proceed?" Marcus drew a deep breath. The magnetic click of his polished boots as he shifted weight echoed in the stillness. He met the chief's gaze, then looked at Turner and Blackwell. His uniform was crisp, his badge gleaming at his chest, but he felt anything but composed. Every heartbeat flared in his ears. "Sir," he began, voice steady though his throat felt dry, "I've laid out the truth in my report and provided Colonel Patel's forensic analysis, but I'd like to demonstrate how I discovered the real evidence." He held up the flash drive. "This contains the untouched video logs from May 15th, before anyone tampered with them." Chief Reynolds inclined his head. "Proceed." Marcus stepped toward the projection screen behind the chief. Captain Daniels pressed a button on the remote, and the screen flickered to life, revealing the grainy expanse of the impound lot. Marcus pointed to the timestamp. 3:12 a.m., May 15th, the moment Claire had purportedly recorded evidence. "This is the original footage," he said. "Notice there is no person in sight. No one is trying to enter a cruiser. The lot was empty." He paused, letting the room absorb the emptiness on the screen. "The doctored footage that was used to arrest me was inserted here at 3:12 a.m. on May 15th with altered metadata to make it look like it happened at the end of my shift on May 18th. He clicked again, and the fake clip appeared, a silhouette beating on a window, the badge glinting in the reflection. Turner shifted in his seat, jaw tightening. Blackwell's eyes darted away. "In addition," Marcus continued, "I cross-referenced the server logs from our archives." He tapped the screen, and a spreadsheet filled the display, columns of dates, usernames, and actions. "See here. A single login on May 15th under Detective Mitchell's credentials marked evidence_delete and evidence_insert. These actions have no legitimate case number, and the IP address matches her workstation." Claire's face went ashen. She rose to her feet, lips curling into a defiant sneer. "That proves nothing. Anyone could have logged in under my name." Captain Daniels leaned forward, voice low but firm. "Your workstation requires biometric authentication after 8 p.m. on weekdays. The logs show a successful fingerprint scan at 9:03 p.m. on May 15th. He looked at Claire. "How do you explain that?" Her eyes flickered to the chief, then back to Marcus. Beads of sweat gathered at her temples. I was reviewing the robbery case. I must have." "You were editing evidence to frame an innocent man," Marcus said, tone rising. "You betrayed the badge?" Claire's composure cracked. "He's not innocent. He let criminals walk free," she spat, stepping toward Marcus, so close he could see the flecks of green in her eyes. "He's soft. He's dangerous." Sarah rose from the back, her voice clear and unwavering. "You're the dangerous one." She advanced, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You betrayed justice to satisfy your own grudge." Turner's face flushed. He stood abruptly, knocking his chair back. "This is preposterous. You've all been manipulated by this circus act." Chief Reynolds raised a hand, and the room fell silent again. His gaze was steady, his voice controlled. "Officer Turner, Sergeant Hill presented irrefutable evidence. Do you have anything further to assert?" Turner's eyes darted between Claire's fallen expression and Marcus's resolute stance. His mouth opened, then closed. At last, he sank back into his chair, arms folded over his chest. Blackwell followed his lead. The chief nodded to Captain Daniels, who rose and addressed the room. "Detective Mitchell, you are under arrest for evidence tampering, perjury, and abuse of departmental resources. You will remain in custody until further notice." Claire's face blanched. She looked around, her bravado evaporating. She made a move for the door, but two uniformed officers stepped forward and cuffed her. She offered no resistance, her shoulders slumping in defeat. As they led her away, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders, only to be replaced by a new ache, the sorrow of betrayal. He watched Claire's retreating figure, the echo of her footsteps fading into silence. Chief Reynolds turned to Marcus, voice softer now. "Sergeant Hill, on behalf of this department, I apologize for the wrong done to you. Your record will be cleared and your commendations reinstated. We are grateful for your perseverance." Marcus swallowed hard, the room spinning slightly. Sarah stepped beside him, her hand warm against his back. He drew in a shuddering breath. "Thank you, sir," he murmured. Captain Daniels approached, offering a firm handshake. "Glad to have you back where you belong." Sarah leaned in, voice hushed. "Come home with me." Outside the precinct, the late afternoon sun slanted across the pavement, turning it golden. Marcus paused at the threshold. In the distance, a freight train groaned, a reminder of journeys begun and carried forward. That night, in the soft lamplight of their living room, Marcus sat beside Sarah on the couch. His uniform hung neatly on a chair, pressed and ready for the next day. Their unborn child stirred, as though sensing the new calm in the world. Sarah looked at him, her eyes gentle. What happened to Claire to Turner? Marcus paused, choosing his words. Claire will face her hearing. Turner and Blackwell have been reprimanded. They'll lose their badges if they don't cooperate. But beyond that, I don't know. She nodded. Do you forgive them? He pondered her question, the weight of justice and mercy pressing in his mind. He imagined Claire's face, her betrayal, her fear in the conference room, and Turner's rigid anger. He thought of Sarah's unwavering faith in him. I forgive them in my heart, he said finally, but this reminds me how fragile trust can be, and that sometimes the greatest danger comes from within. Sarah reached for his hand. Then we'll build our family on something stronger, love, truth, and the courage to stand up when things go wrong. He kissed her palm, a promise in every touch. Outside, the city settled into night, lights shimmering on rain-washed streets. In the hush between breaths, a new chapter began, not defined by betrayal or pain, but by resilience, justice, and the quiet power of forgiveness. And as Marcus closed his eyes, the soft stir of their child lulled him toward a dream where darkness could not break the bond he shared with his family or the badge he wore with pride and purpose. The weeks that followed moved in measured steps. Detective Claire Mitchell's hearing loomed on the calendar, a stark reminder of broken trust and betrayal. Turner and Blackwell were reassigned pending review. Their once proud badges, now mere symbols of mistakes they could not undo. For Marcus, each morning began with the familiar donning of his uniform, navy jacket, polished badge, crisp white shirt. Yet beneath the fabric, he carried scars far deeper than any arrest could leave. One bright Friday, Captain Daniels tapped on Marcus's door at precisely 8 o'clock. In the small evidence room, Daniels laid out the final reports. Claire's tampering charges were upheld, Turner and Blackwell formally disciplined, and Marcus cleared on all counts. He handed Marcus a neatly typed letter of commendation from Chief Reynolds, praising his integrity, perseverance, and unwavering commitment to justice. Daniels' voice softened. You earned more than this, Hill. You earned our respect back. As Daniels spoke, Marcus glanced at the letter. He imagined Sarah's face when he read it to her, the way her eyes would shine with pride, but he also felt the weight of what he'd lost, the simplicity of trust, the certainty that his uniform meant protection as much as service. He folded the letter, tucking it into his jacket pocket. Thank you, sir, he said. Leaving the station, Marcus felt the spring air on his face. He breathed deeply, tasting new beginnings. He dialed Sarah's number, and when she answered, he heard the warmth in her voice. They met at the park near their apartment, the place where he'd first proposed, kneeling on one knee among cherry blossoms. Now the trees were budding green, and the benches gleamed in the morning sun. Sarah rose as he approached, her hand resting gently on her belly. She wore a light dress, her chestnut hair loose around her shoulders. Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but instead wrapped her in a tender embrace. The weight of recent months, arrest, betrayal, vindication, lifted at that moment. He pressed his forehead to hers. We're okay, he whispered. They sat on the bench beneath the budding trees. Marcus pulled out the commendation and read it aloud, each word resonating between them. Sarah's eyes filled, and she leaned into him when he finished. You showed them what you're made of, she said, voice soft. And you showed me, too. He smiled, but his thoughts drifted beyond the applause. I'm glad I'm cleared, he admitted, but this whole thing... He paused, searching for words that matched his turmoil. It makes me wonder how many other times someone trusted a badge when trust wasn't deserved. Sarah reached for his hand. Justice isn't perfect, she said, but you reminded them, and me, that it's worth fighting for. She brushed a strand of hair from her eyes. You did everything you could. Marcus closed his eyes, picturing Claire's hollow confession in the conference room, Turner's stubborn anger, Blackwell's silent regret. He saw their faces not as villains in a story, but as humans caught in fear, pride, and desperation. In his mind, he replayed each step of his own journey, every doubt, every moment he could have given in to despair. He squeezed Sarah's hand. I've seen the worst of what people can do when they hide behind uniforms and oaths. But I've also seen goodness, your faith in me, Danielle's willingness to listen, Claire's initial care for victims. He smiled ruefully. I guess there's no one truth in this job, only choices. Together they walked the winding paths of the park, sunlight filtering through new leaves. Marcus spoke of his plan to volunteer extra hours at the community center, mentoring young cadets, teaching them integrity over pride. Sarah listened, proud. They paused by the old fountain, its spray catching the light. Promise me something, Marcus said, looking into Sarah's eyes. Promise we'll raise our child knowing that justice isn't just a badge or a law, it's compassion, fairness, and standing up for the truth, even when it hurts. Sarah traced the curve of her belly. I promise, she said, and I promise we'll never let fear make us betray what we believe. As they stood, a family passed by, children chasing pigeons, laughter echoing in the warm air. Marcus felt a swell of emotion. Hope, fear, responsibility. He imagined his child running in that park years from now, safe under the watch of honest officers. He wanted that world for them, a world where badges meant safety, not suspicion. That evening at home, he hung the letter of commendation above his desk. He sat before it, a journal open on his lap, and wrote lines for his unborn child, about fatherhood, about courage, about the moral weight of each decision. He wrote that true honor lay in choosing empathy over arrogance, and that forgiveness was as important as accountability. When he finished, Marcus closed the journal and placed it in a small wooden box alongside Sarah's early ultrasound photo and a folded hospital bracelet. He reflected on the path that had brought him here, from the misty dawn of his wrongful arrest to the clarity of his vindication. He realized that the deepest wounds, injustice, in life often come from those we trust most. Yet, healing began when we faced those betrayals with truth and compassion. In the quiet of their bedroom, Marcus watched Sarah drift to sleep. He sat in the dim light, fingers tracing the edge of their family wedding photo on the nightstand. He let the events of the past swirl through him. Betrayal by a friend, discipline for the guilty, redemption for the falsely accused. With each breath, he felt a new resolve to serve not just with courage, but with humility and open heart. As midnight settled, he whispered into the dark, "May our child know a world where trust and justice walk hand in hand." And with that blessing, he extinguished the lamp, closing his eyes on a night made gentle by hope and on a future shaped by the moral clarity he had fought so hard to reclaim. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more meaningful stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.